Welcome to Fast Effect Double Speed Magic the Gathering from ELD's Time Vault Games. We have Aiden on 8 cast, eating out Mox Opal, Lotus Petal, Seed of the Synod, 3 mana on the first turn, and a Chalice of the Void, making sure that Josh can't follow exactly that path. He's going to need rituals for acceleration, and he discards a win condition. And Balustrade Spy. Emery, Lurker, the Lock shows up, does some milling. It'll potentially recur win conditions. Can't really recur the typical card drawing with Chalice at 0. That's one reason to be concerned about it. You can't reuse Mishra's and Urza's baubles. Kappa Cannoneer has arrived, improvising with all of those artifacts. He does get a +1/+1 counter when he enters the battlefield. It was like in a modify precon, so all the cards cared about modified, equipped, having +1/+1 count. Oh my gosh. Cabal Ritual, never mind. No time for sides here. Josh just jams a Cabal Ritual, and Aiden has no response. That mills the entire deck. Balustrade Spy just shows up and ends the party. A couple of 0 drops stuck in hand for Aiden. That does happen. When you have a Chalice at 0, it's possible that you could have had one more card in hand. Well, at least. I mean, we don't know how long that Urza's Bauble was in hand. Emery potentially could have been recurring that. That is a very interesting question. I believe there's been some pretty strong feelings in the comments that 8 cast absolutely should be jamming Chalice at 0 in this matchup. I am not disputing that, just pointing out the trade-offs. If you do have counter magic, for example, the Chalice at 1 stops those Cabal therapies. That'll happen once they actually resolve their Balustrade Spy or Undercity Informer. Potentially sit back on counterspells and actually win the battle over the Dread Return. It's something to consider. Chalice at 0 does shut off their Force of Negation, Summoner's Pacts. I'm sorry, their Pact of Negation, I should say. Their Summoner's Pacts, Lotus Petal, Chalice. I had a build of Oops All Spells. Actually went as far as running Mox Opal in it, along with Lion's Eye Diamonds. That proved to be just a little bit too much. It was faster, but like the deck's already fast enough. Really wasn't what the deck needed. Lion's Eye Diamond, particularly in the sideboard, is an interesting addition to this deck, but Oops All Spells, primarily a budget deck. The LEDs allow you to transform into Belcher and sidestep any graveyard hate. Used to be a solid, fairly inexpensive plan. Of course, Lion's Eye Diamonds have gone up significantly since those days. Still not a crazy card. I mean, I will not be surprised at all when Lion's Eye Diamond's $1,000. I imagine that'll happen in the next 5 to 10 years. 10 years is just a meaningful period of time for assets like Magic cards. Doesn't feel like a lot of time to me. I'm getting old. My 40s now. I think of, the 90s just feels like not that long ago. Is incorrect. It is like 30 years ago. But it just doesn't feel it. I don't know. Magic came out early 90s. Sets like Mirrored and still feel new to me. Those new borders. So Josh has to suffer through having the draw again. This time Aiden's opening much less exciting. Urza's Saga into a Pithing Needle. And it looks like a Xantid Swarm. If this sticks, and it does, this could be a big problem. This will make any counter magic that Aiden has pretty useless for a turn. Now, sometimes you can actually block the Xantid Swarm, killing it, and, if they can't kill you on that turn, they'll be all right. But Aiden will need, Thought Monitor for that. And Grafdigger's Cage, along with Emery. Okay, well, that's going to be tough. Grafdigger's Cage, not what you want to see when you're playing Oops All Spells. This is one of those things that could be sidestepped with the Belcher plan. Oh, wow. This is not looking good at all for Josh. Did I see 2 Fairy Macabres in hand? That's pretty graphic. Foundation Breaker. Not really a solid line. That's just coming right back. Thanks to Emery. He's kind of spinning the wheels. You really need to save that Foundation Breaker for a turn where you're just comboing off. And looks like he's just scooping it up there. Yeah, double Fairy Macabre is going to be super difficult to beat. The Veil of Summer does not protect your graveyard. So Aiden ties that one up, 1-1, going into a third game, though he will have to defend serve, so to speak, with Oops All Spells getting to go first. Looks like Aiden mulling to 6. Josh keeping his 7. Got to expect some fireworks if you're keeping on 7. And Fairy Macabre stripped from hand using Cabal Therapy. Still a lot of other problem cards to deal with here. A ton of fast mana and Grafdigger's Cage and Chalice at 0. Appland. Looks like we might have some Permission Aiden's hand. Yeah, Force plus blue card. Not a bad place to be. He's got this Emery. Jams a Pithing Needle. That can shut off half the combo. Balustrade Spy and Undercity Informer. Balustrade Spy doesn't actually have a activated ability, but Undercity does. You can name either card, I just don't recommend it. You are allowed to name cards that don't have activated abilities. And Sai comes in, along with a Chalice at 1. That's a win condition. We have Chalice at 0, Chalice at 1, and Grafdigger's Cage. This is not looking particularly good. There's an Emery in hand. I believe Thoughtcast drawing a couple more. At some point, we'll see Emery coming down. At that point, you're going to have to clear all of the problem artifacts in order to make anything work, as Emery can just recur things from the graveyard. There's a little bit of an element of being able to, like if you, let's see, well, one example is like Chalice. If you get rid of a Chalice at 1 when they have a Chalice at 2 on board, then they can't play their Chalice at 1 again, which is nice. That does come up. Chalice at 2 is often a trap because of that. But here, I mean, who can resist getting 3 Chalices out, locking up 0, 1, and 2 mana spells? Xantid Swarm with a Chalice check. But Aiden potentially just going to be able to beat down. Notably, the actual kill cards don't care about Chalice at 0, 1, or 2. I mean, if Josh does manage to get a couple of more lands, he will be able to, for example, cast Balustrade Spy. The Undercity Informer, almost certainly the card that Pithing Needle's naming, so Josh essentially just needs to top deck 3 lands in a row to have any shot at this. He does not, and I think at this point it's just going to be a few damage a turn, wrapping this one up. These Thopters pushing through some extra damage, closing the window. Josh not having enough time here. both forces, Force a Negation and Force a Will and a Fairy Macabre. Aiden's has still got all these. And that is a wrap for 8 cast, beating one of the fastest combo decks in the format.